Austin Davis, Democrat for Lieutenant Governor. Why are you running for this office?
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm thrilled to be joining you and the audience at PCN today. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor because I want to be a strong governing partner for Josh Shapiro, who's going to be our Democratic nominee for governor, as well as a strong advocate for working class families here in Pennsylvania. That's something that's deeply personal to me. I'm the proud son of a union bus driver and a hairdresser. And I watched my parents work extremely hard to make sure that my sister and I had every opportunity to succeed. And every family should have a little bit easier to succeed and live out the American dream here in Pennsylvania. And as a lieutenant governor, I'm going to make sure that I'm a fighter for working class families in Pennsylvania.
Tell us about your background. You're already working within state government. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'm in my 5th year as a member of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, representing the Mon Valley region of Allegheny County, Pennsylvania's 35th legislative district. I've had the privilege of serving on the House Appropriations Committee, as well as the House Consumer Affairs, Insurance, and Transportation Committees. But in addition to that, I'm also a leader within our House Democratic Caucus. I serve as the chairman of the Allegheny County House Democratic Delegation, the second largest delegation in our caucus, in our Commonwealth. And so I think those experiences have prepared me to not only know how state government operates, but to be a consensus builder and somebody who brings people together to try to find real solutions to Pennsylvania's most pressing problems. What
have your priorities been while you've been a lawmaker?
Yeah, so, unfortunately in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, being a minority member in the House as a Democrat, it's often difficult to get your legislation passed. But I've focused on issues that affect working class families, particularly reconnecting my community in the Mon Valley that was devastated by the collapse of the steel industry to new and emerging economies. I was thrilled to help secure a medical cannabis license for a grower distributor in my district, as well as a RCAP grant to help expand that project. So when that project opened, we created 100 new jobs. As of about 7 months ago, we announced that they're going to be expanding to up to 800 jobs on a former steel mill industrial site in the Mon Valley. Bringing economic development projects to our region has been a big focus of mine as a legislator, as well as ensuring we have adequate access to public transportation. I was proud to just cut the ribbon on a new transportation center in the McKeesport area, but making sure that every community who depends on public transit, not just as a luxury, but as a lifeline for many folks who depend on public transportation.
Why go from being a lawmaker to being lieutenant governor? Why not just continue to represent Allegheny County?
Yeah, so I think, we're at an inflection point in our Commonwealth. And I think the next gubernatorial administration is going to put Pennsylvania on a course, quite frankly, for the next 25 years. I believe Josh Shapiro is going to make an outstanding governor, and I want to be his governing partner. I'm proud to be the only candidate in the race on the Democratic side for lieutenant governor who's been endorsed by Attorney General Shapiro to serve as his lieutenant governor. I think the relationship that Josh and I have will be unique to prior governors and lieutenant governors, and that we really want to work as a team. We've said that from the beginning of our campaigns, that Shapiro Davis is the team that wants to not only lead Democrats to victory, but wants to deliver real results for working class Pennsylvanians. So I think I can do a lot more in the administrative side as a partner to Josh Shapiro to help advance the cause of working class Pennsylvanians.
Which aspect of your experience as a lawmaker has really prepared you to be our next lieutenant governor?
Yeah, I think my experience serving on the House Appropriations Committee has given me a unique bird's eye view of the state's budgetary process, as well as our financial and fiscal challenges, but also being the chairman of the Allegheny County House Democratic Delegation has taught me how to be somebody who builds bridges, who finds consensus. I have to say our delegation in Allegheny County is one of the most diverse delegations within our caucus. We have, very liberal left-leaning Democrats, and we also have very conservative Democrats as well as moderate Democrats. And so I was proud of the fact that when I was elected unanimously by my colleagues in Allegheny County to lead them. And I think that's a testament to the type of lieutenant governor I'll be, somebody who works across ideology to try to find common ground to deliver real results for working class Pennsylvanians.
So let's talk about some of the specific duties and responsibilities of being lieutenant governor. You'd be president of the state senate, and of course here on PCN we show those floor sessions. And just tell us about the nuts and bolts of that job and how you would interact with that legislative body. Yeah,
I think one of the important factors is that everybody is heard in the Pennsylvania State Senate, whether you're a member of the majority party or the minority party. And as the president of the Senate, it's my job to make sure that every senator, every citizen through their senator allows their voices to be heard, to make sure that we're conducting debate in a fair and equal manner that allows for all ideas to be expressed, as well as for each citizen's voice to be expressed. We know, we are all as House members and senators elected to represent our constituents. And I think, far too often we've seen debate break down in Harrisburg. We've seen rules used against members of one party or another. And quite frankly, that's just unacceptable. When you silence the voice of any senator or any House member, you're silencing the voice of their constituents. And as president of the Senate, I'm going to make sure we foster an environment where everybody's voice is heard.
So you have to keep the lawmakers on track, don't you? Give us an example of how you have to rein in the occasional debate.
Yeah, I mean, so, they give you the gavel for a reason. Part of being the president of the Senate is making sure that we're maintaining the decorum of the Senate. We're allowing each person's views to be expressed. And quite frankly, you have to not be afraid to use the power of the gavel to call folks out of order when they may be breaking the rules or where they may be trying to silence one side or another. And I think I would not have a problem doing that to make sure every Pennsylvanian's voice is heard in the Pennsylvania State Senate.
So can you give us a brief refresher on just what parliamentary procedure is? Because now, after all, as lieutenant governor, you'd be on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, I mean, so parliamentary procedure is the rules that are conducted to manage debate of a particular meeting. The Senate rules are slightly different than the rules in the House to a certain degree because they have different powers than House members. But it's basically just to ensure that the meeting is conducted thoroughly and fairly and allows all viewpoints to be heard.
Often when we do interviews here, we also interview people who are running for judge, and often they have experience as lawyers. In other words, being an advocate for a specific side. Now all of a sudden they're asked to be impartial in a courtroom. So it occurs to me that's kind of comparable to the transition you're going through. You'd be going from rank and file lawmaker to keeping order in the Senate, and as long as you're prepared to make that transition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we have to keep the order in the Senate because every voice has to be heard. And that's as well as making sure the minority is heard. Far too often we've seen the majority try to silence the minority. And that doesn't lead to a productive government for the citizens of Pennsylvania. And so as lieutenant governor, it's going to be my job to make sure that we're keeping Senate decorum, but we're allowing every voice to be heard as we move through debate.
So
I will say that the Senate debates and the General Assembly, we debate very important issues. In some cases, come down to life and death. They come down to environmental issues, things that impact people deeply. And I think that's something that we can't play with as we move through debate in the General Assembly.
For you personally, how steep would the learning curve be then with respect to learning all the particulars of parliamentary procedure? It seems complicated, at least to a layman who watches the session on PCN.
Yeah, I don't think it would be complicated at all. I think my 5 years in the legislature has prepared me. I've been living under parliamentary procedure as a House member. And so I don't think I would have a steep learning curve at all. I think people of Pennsylvania they want a lieutenant governor. While parliamentary procedure is important, but I think they want somebody who's going to allow their views and their voices to be expressed and heard in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, particularly in the state.
In the event of a tie vote in the Senate, you would get to cast the vote that breaks the tie. Have you given that much thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important responsibility. Obviously, I can't say how I would vote one way or another given a particular issue.
Sure.
But it's a responsibility that I would take seriously. That I would be completely informed on whatever issue that is before casting that vote. And it's really no different than what we do. What I do every day as a state legislator, voting on bills and procedures. But I think if called upon to do that, I'd be ready to do it pretty quickly.
So let's go on to another responsibility of Lieutenant Governor here in Pennsylvania, and it has to do with the Board of Pardons. Give us a quick refresher on what they do.
Yeah, the Board of Pardons is the board that oversees pardons. So anybody who's looking for a pardon or any inmate who's looking for a commutation from a sentence goes before the Board of Pardons, and it's made up of 3 citizen representatives, the Attorney General, as well as the Lieutenant Governor, who serves as the chair of the board. Look, I think Lieutenant Governor Fetterman has done some outstanding work as the chair of the Board of Pardons, and I'd continue to build upon that. We have to. I would approach being the chairman from a viewpoint that people deserve second chances from the Board of Pardons. We need to make sure, one, the board staff has a complement that's enough to carry out its mission. Right now, there's a massive backlog for the Board of Pardons. We need to make sure that the board has the staff and appropriate resources to carry out its mission. And just to give you an example, I have, as a state legislator, 6 people who work directly for me in my office. The Board of Pardons has 3, and the sheer volume of the work that they have is overwhelming. So we need to make sure that they have the resources that they need. Right now, to get a commutation of a life sentence, you have to have a unanimous vote by the Board of Pardons. I would use my position as Lieutenant Governor to advocate to change the law back to a majority vote as opposed to a unanimous vote. I currently support legislation to do that in the House now. And thirdly, we need to make sure that the Board of Pardons is accessible to folks. That means increasing the frequency in which the board meets, exploring virtual options. Prior to COVID, folks had to travel to Harrisburg to appear before the board. That can oftentimes be a significant cost factor for low-income Pennsylvanians who are seeking a request before the board. I think we need to be flexible. I think we need to be as much of a working board as possible. And I will tell you, there's a unique story that I have from being a legislator. When I first got elected in my first year in office, there was a gentleman by the name of Corey Sanders who was elected to the McKeesport City Council. I'd known Corey probably my whole life. He was a Little League football coach, a small business owner, and the chairman of our downtown business authority. And when he ran for city council, it was kind of a natural step in his civic life. Unfortunately, once he was elected, he had a criminal conviction from about 30 years ago, from when he was 18 years old. He's in his mid to late 50s now. That prohibited him from serving in office. As his state legislator, I went before the board with him to advocate for a pardon for him. Unfortunately, he did not get a pardon in time to take his seat on city council, but he did receive one. And we should make sure Pennsylvania is a place where folks have the opportunity, who've paid their debt to society, who've played by the rules, that Pennsylvania is a place that they should be given a second chance.
The board deals with granting pardons, and in addition to that, though, they also deal with something called the commutation of sentence. And you've already mentioned that at least 2 times, but back up a little bit and just tell us, what is the difference between commutation of a sentence and granting someone a pardon? Yeah,
so a pardon is if you were, say you committed a crime, went to jail, or were released, or just have a criminal conviction on your record, but you're not incarcerated, you can apply for a pardon. That would come before the board, and the board has to make a positive recommendation to send it on to the governor, who can then at that point decide to grant a pardon or not. And then if a life commutation is when you are currently incarcerated on a life sentence and you are seeking to be released, you'd have to come before the board to ask for a commutation, which would then be sent to the governor to either sign or deny.
And let's talk about executive clemency. How does that complement what we've talked about already, having a pardon or having your sentence commuted?
Yeah, so executive clemency would just reduce the amount of it would not wipe it out of your record. It would just be released. It would just release you from your incarceration.
So what kind of information does the board collect in order to make a recommendation? Can you tell us about the basic process?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a member of the board, so I can't tell you everything that they look at currently right now. But I can tell you they look at your record from your time in the Department of Corrections. They look at whether you've paid all your fines and restitution costs, court fees. They look at your overall history of whether you've had any infractions or criminal history since that initial incident. I believe they look at psych evaluations. I think people who are seeking certain like life commutations have to have a psych evaluation through the Department of Corrections. So there's a number of factors that the board considers before whether making a recommendation one way or the other.
So being on the Board of Pardons suggests an interest in the criminal justice system in general. Do you have any ideas or recommendations?
Yeah, look, I think I'm in a very unique position, quite frankly, to be the first person of color to chair the Board of Pardons. The reality is that the vast majority of folks who come before the board, quite frankly, look like me. They look like people who come from my community. So having real lived experience as to how the criminal justice system affects people of color, I think will be a real asset to have on the board. And I think, the platform, the lieutenant governor has a loud platform and the ability to advocate for laws and change. And I think criminal justice reform would be a priority of mine. I know, for one, reforming our probation and parole system here in Pennsylvania is something that many legislators and advocates have been pushing for a number of years that we haven't quite been able to get to the finish line. I think being lieutenant governor would give me a strong position to be able to advocate for that type of legislation.
Let's talk about another big responsibility of the attorney, or rather being lieutenant governor. You'd be the chair of the PA Emergency Management Agency. And again, a refresher on what they do, please.
Yeah, PEMA is responsible for basically responding to any emergency management in the Commonwealth. Emergency management can be very different. We've seen, 9/11, for example, would be an emergency that would fall under PEMA's jurisdiction, as well as many of the efforts to respond to the ongoing pandemic during COVID. PEMA took a lead role in coordinating the agencies to make sure that folks were responding in an appropriate way. I think the fact that Josh Shapiro and I are running as a team, and Josh has endorsed my campaign, will put me in a very strong position to lead that agency, as well as to coordinate with the governor's office and all the other corresponding agencies. I think to be an effective chair of PEMA, you have to be able to have a good relationship with the governor. And I have no doubt that by the way we're embarking on this campaign, that'll be the case for a Shapiro-Davis administration.
So let's talk more about your campaign. At this point, what is the main message of your campaign, and how is it different running for lieutenant governor as opposed to being a state representative?
Yeah, we just kind of ran through some of the actual functional duties of being the lieutenant governor. And look, that's important for sure, no doubt. But the reality is, I think Pennsylvanians want more from their lieutenant governor. They want somebody who's going to be an advocate and a fighter for them and the issues that are facing everyday Pennsylvanians. And that's what they're going to get with Austin Davis in the lieutenant governor's office. Somebody who's going to fight to make their lives better and really take an expansive view of the role of lieutenant governor, somebody who should be a governing partner with the governor, somebody who's active in the day-to-day governance of our Commonwealth. That's what folks are going to get with me. And I can tell you, as I travel across the state, people want leaders who are going to be results-oriented and who are going to be focused on making their lives better and not the petty arguments that go on in the Capitol. I can tell you it's a big difference running for lieutenant governor than it is as a state legislator, particularly the sheer size of our state. We have a massive state, and going to every corner can be challenging and difficult and expensive. But, it also really allows you to see the beauty of it in our state and the resilience of the people of Pennsylvania. We are a proud, hardworking, caring, and compassionate group of people. And, I just am impressed at how great our state truly is every day that I get to get on the road.
Now, we've talked about some of the specific responsibilities of the lieutenant governor, but how else do you put your campaign together? In other words, how do you generate interest in this position?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the campaign, I think me as a candidate is a unique candidate for lieutenant governor. I think I'm the first African American to ever be endorsed by a major party for the office of lieutenant governor, to be endorsed by the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. I think the fact that I'm a younger legislator, I would be the youngest lieutenant governor in the history of this Commonwealth if elected. I'd be sworn in at 33 years old. And I think me as a candidate draws interest to the office, quite frankly. But, I think part of it is on the candidates to get out there in the communities and to sell our message. Today was the first day that my campaign went up on television across the Commonwealth to talk about my background and the work that I've done as a state legislator and my family's background in the Mon Valley. And really, I'm an everyday person. I'm the son of a union bus driver and a hairdresser and a first-generation college graduate. I live in the same neighborhoods as every regular Pennsylvanian in a lower middle-class community. And so, if folks often want elected officials who represent their lived experience, and I think that's something that folks can see when they look at my campaign.
What separates you from other Democratic candidates in this campaign? For example, Representative Sims is in the legislature as well. But how would you distinguish yourself from him?
Yeah, I would say I'm the only person between Representative Sims and I who's held a leadership position in the Pennsylvania in our caucus as chairman of the Allegheny County House Democratic delegation. He has not. I am the only person, if you look at the majority of our colleagues in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives who've endorsed in our race have endorsed me, including every member of our leadership team, from House Democratic leader Joanna McClinton to our whip Jordan Harris, our caucus chairman Dan Miller, our appropriations chairman Matt Bradford. The folks who work with us every day and know us best decided that I was the best candidate to serve and the best person to serve as Pennsylvania's next lieutenant governor. And I think that's something that really stands out and differentiates myself from Representative Sims.
The lieutenant governor often takes on extra projects. You could even consider them kind of extracurricular projects. So besides the important responsibilities we've talked about, what else would you like to work on?
Yeah, I really am serious when I say I want to be a governing partner for Josh Shapiro to help him enact his agenda in Harrisburg. I really view the governor and lieutenant governor as a team who should be working together. And I think my experience in the legislature will help him enact legislation. But I also think my experience in helping run Pennsylvania's second largest county when I served in Allegheny County government in the county executive's office as a senior advisor is a unique skill set that no other candidate brings to this race and can help make Pennsylvania work better for the people it's meant to serve.
Now, you've mentioned Josh Shapiro several times, and after all, he has endorsed you in this race. He's the Democrat for governor. However, you are running independently, so it's possible that the primary winner for governor might not be Josh Shapiro. So are you prepared to work with anybody else?
Well, given at this point that Josh Shapiro is the only Democrat on the ballot for lieutenant governor, it's not really possible that he won't be our Democratic nominee for governor. He's the only candidate running as a Democrat, and that's on the ballot. So he will be our Democratic nominee for governor.
So can you use our remaining time here and tell us why you should be elected lieutenant governor?
Yeah, I think people should vote for me because I'm somebody who grew up in communities just like theirs. I've often said the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And we have a big, broad, diverse Commonwealth. And our gubernatorial ticket should be representative of that breadth and diversity. It's not lost on me that if I'm elected lieutenant governor, I'll be the first African American to ever serve at that high of a level in Pennsylvania state government. And I think government is meant to be reflective of the people it's meant to serve. And for far too long, the halls of power have been out of touch for particularly Black and brown Pennsylvanians and working class Pennsylvanians. And I think that's something that needs to change. And if folks vote for me, they're going to get a strong advocate for working class families in Pennsylvania state government.
Austin Davis, Democrat for lieutenant governor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.